Hello everyone, Prynhawn da, croeso, it's lovely to see you all, and we do appreciate you giving up your time at the end of, I'm sure, a very busy day. But we've got an action-packed programme for you. We're going to make sure that there's a bit of talk, plus we'll be asking you to do a few things. We've got some activities, so hopefully the time will go quickly, and it'll all work out well, because we've got a few little Padlets and various bits and pieces, but some gizmos which we hope that they'll all work smoothly. So today we're going to be looking at some research that we undertook, which was all around using a targeted programme to support quiet, shy and anxious children in the early years. So what we're going to do this afternoon is we're going to talk to you about our research, and we're going to give you lots of ideas on how to support those children. So I'm Susan Davis. I'm a reader in education at Cardiff Metropolitan University, and I've been doing this research since my doctorate, which was in 2012, and it was all around quiet, shy and anxious children. And the reason I started this research is because I would consider myself to be a quiet person, although I'm a lecturer, which is probably at odds with that. But both of my children, they're in their 30s now, but both of my children were quiet in school. And one of the things that my youngest daughter always used to come home from school and say, "Mummy, they've sat me next to whoever the most loudest boy in the whole class was, and he gives me a headache in the day because he's so loud." So I'd have to go in and I'd have to see the teacher, and I'd have to say, "Well, you've sat her next to Joshua," whatever his name was, and he's a very loud boy and she's a very quiet girl." And they'd say to me, "Yes, but she calms him down." Well, it might have calmed him down, but it didn't calm my daughter down. So that was one thing that kind of got me into this research, really, and I absolutely find it fascinating. And I was very lucky then, a couple of years after I'd done my doctorate, to find out that my colleague Rhiannon, who will introduce herself now, came on board the work with me, and we've been doing it ever since. So I'm going to pass you over to my colleague Rhiannon now.
So Prynhawn da bawb a croeso, welcome everybody and good afternoon, nice to see everybody. And as Sue has said, we're really delighted to be doing this session with you this evening. I work at Cardiff Met, not with Sue, we work on different programmes, but we met at one point, had a coffee together and realised that we had shared interests, and decided to work on this programme together. So I was really keen to have the Welsh medium aspect of the programme, so we'll talk through that as we go along, and also to support maybe learners who might have additional learning needs that we're not quite seeing at the moment, and they might be quiet, shy and anxious and not sort of explain or show those needs obviously. So I work at Cardiff Met. I teach on a lot of additional learning needs modules on the masters as well. I've taught on early years programmes as well at another university, and I've written texts for nursery children in Welsh. Some of you might be familiar with Derwin a Dotty, so I was quite pleased to contribute to some of those stories, and obviously working on this project with Sue. So we're going to start off with an activity for you, and looking at how you would define the terms quiet, shy and anxious. So we've got a Padlet here. So if you've got a phone, what you need to do is to go to your camera function. If you don't know how to do this already, apologies if you already do. But take your camera, go into the camera function, and point the camera at the QR code, and a link should, an HTTP link should pop up. If you click on that, it will take you to a Padlet where I'd like you just to post how you would define quiet, how you would define shy and how you would define anxious. And you can post your thoughts there anonymously. We won't be able to see who said that. and just to see how you would define those. So I'm going to give you about 10 minutes to do that on your own on the Padlet, and Sue is going to post the link in case you can't use the QR code or it's not working for you. We did try it out, but you never know, do you?
Yeah, no, we did try it. I've put it in the chat, everyone. So if you can't do the thing with your camera, then you can open it up in the chat. If anybody's got any problems, just pop something in the chat or put your hand up. But hopefully it'll work smoothly for you.
Oh, right. So I'm going to stop sharing the slides at the moment. I'm going to bring up the Padlet so we can start seeing some of the responses that come up.
This is really exciting because Rhiannon and I have tried this. Oh, have we got a couple? Lovely. Yeah. Super. Got some good ones there, Rhiannon.
Yeah, I'm just mindful of the people that have just come into the call. So I'm going to close this for a moment. So just to explain to those who've come in a little bit later, we're at this stage. Welcome, Croeso. We're just looking at how people would define quiet, shy and anxious children. And Sue, you might have to put the QR code up again.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're working on a Padlet and just want you to think about how you would define quiet, shy and anxious. And if you could post your thoughts, they'll be anonymous on the Padlet. You haven't missed anything. We've only just begun, so it's lovely to see you.
Okay, I'm just popping it in again for anybody that that can't open it with their phone and didn't see it the first time around.
So I'm going to just change screens again so we can have a look at what people are writing. Oh, we've got loads here. Brilliant.
Okay, lovely. Okay, I think that's probably everybody now. We've got loads.
Yeah, we have. So
yeah.
Oh, and more.
Oh, great.
Brilliant. I don't know if anybody wants to talk about why they would define quiet, shy and anxious children in that way, or if they've got experiences that they wish to share at this point. You can post it in the chat. I don't know if we've got anything in the chat.
Yeah, there's some good ones in there. That's a good one. Face away from people. Yes, definitely. So turn away from people, distract themselves by playing with toys. So yeah, so don't look up. They're looking down rather than making eye contact. Yeah, that's definitely a good some good thinking there.
Yeah, and being scared to get involved, worried of others' opinions, fear for themselves in some situations. So they're scared to put themselves forward. Transition is another area that causes difficulty. And somebody's noted that upset before transition to school, nursery, etc. And the forgotten child, that's a really nice description. Often they're not seen in a busy classroom. So definitely. I'm good. Thank you very much for the contributions. I think, wanting to be with or near an adult as much as possible. Withdrawn behaviours, refusal to take part, uncomfortable, non-confident, reluctant to do anything. So I think you've got the general idea of the type of children's or some of the behaviours that we might see with quiet, shy and anxious children. So I'm going to go back to the slides now. And Sue is going to talk you through some of the academic definitions of quiet, shy and anxious children.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Rhiannon. I think also at this stage it's to say that most children go through periods of being quiet or shy, and sometimes they're shy in response to stimulus. For example, if they feel embarrassed about something, and it's a completely normal part of childhood. I think when it becomes an issue is when it stops them from joining in, as some of you said, or it makes them feel unconfident, or it makes them feel they withdraw from things, and also other children may treat them differently as well. And when that is the case, that's when it becomes a problem. So if we're looking at quiet children or introverted children, I don't like the word introvert because I think it has negative connotations. I mean, and we get that from society. It's bad to be an introvert, but it's good to be an extrovert. So it's good to be outgoing. It's bad to be quiet. And I think what we'll unpick during the session this afternoon is actually it can be a good thing to be quiet, because if everybody was loud, then we wouldn't get anything done. But I think it's just the way that society views quiet people, and they view them very much in a negative way. So if we're looking at quiet then, or introversion, it's a preference for environments that are not overstimulating. And again, I'm sure working with young children. I mean, I forgot to say at the beginning that I was a nursery teacher myself in a previous life. So I know that the sort of challenge of working in that very, very busy, very noisy, stimulating environment for some children can be really, really difficult. And we've got that's a quote by Susan Cain, and we'll be looking at her work a little bit later on in the afternoon. So that's quiet introversion, which is more or less the things that you guys put up on the Padlet. So if we look at the terms for shyness then, so shyness is a temperamental trait. So shyness is either inherited, so some people are shy because they've got shy parents, or they're shy in relation to environmental things that happen to them. But it's mostly kind of characterized by being wary about something, having fear about something, being self-conscious in social situations. And then in school or nursery, it's associated with a wider range of socio-emotional difficulties. And I think it's this idea that as practitioners, we need to ensure that we really cater for our quiet children, and that we don't sort of put them out on a limb, if you like. And one of the things that my little grandson is shy, and people always say to him, "Oh, you're shy, aren't you?" They say it to him as more or less the first thing they say to him, and I'm there thinking, "Oh no, please don't say that. Don't make it a big thing." So I suppose it's how we cater for them, and how. I mean, obviously it's difficult to have a quiet early years setting. I absolutely appreciate that, because young children are vocal, they do make a lot of noise, but I think what we just need to make sure when we have quiet children in our settings is make sure that some of the time there is a quiet space, or a quiet space that they can go to. Maybe that might be outdoors, and again, I'm sure you've all found this, when children are outdoors, they don't make as much noise sometimes as they do when they're inside, because when they go outdoors they might make an initial noise, but then they quieten down, because being out in nature and being out, we know this through Forest School, that children make less noise outdoors than they do indoors. So it's this idea of how do we get our settings to be a little bit less overstimulating. Because also the other thing that we find with quiet, shy and anxious children is they're also very highly sensitive, or they can be highly sensitive. So they're very alert to stimuli such as noise, smells, maybe from the dinner hall or from food preparation. Also, they don't like labels in their clothes. They find them itchy, scratchy, that sort of thing. So that's another thing as well. And again, this idea of pointing out shyness almost perpetuates shyness. So by saying to a shy child, "Oh, you're shy," that actually makes them shyer then as well. So and again, it's that idea of shyness is a negative, and it's kind of like that's the taboo in our society. And then we go on to childhood anxiety, which again is completely normal, as long as it doesn't affect the child. So children have to be anxious because we don't want them to get run over by a bus, or we don't want them to put their hand in on top of the oven. So anxiety around things which are dangerous things is completely normal, but it's when that anxiety becomes sort of a big thing, or it becomes out of control, out of proportion, and it impairs them from everyday life. So they don't want to go to Joshua's party, they don't want to go to the park because of the loud boys that'll be on the swings. So when it's affecting them and their everyday life, then that's when it's sort of out of proportion. So though it's normal, it's not normal when they have heightened anxiety about things. And again, the more that they have those social and emotional difficulties, the result then, as they get a little bit older, is low self-esteem, worry, and negative self-image. So we really need to kind of nip that in the bud while they're in the early years classroom. Oh, I think we might have lost Rhiannon. I think she might have gone off. Okay, now I have got the PowerPoint on my screen. I'm not sure where Rhiannon has gone. Oh, she's coming back in. She's back in. I think, is that her coming back in, Kelsey? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, she's coming back in.
Great, okay.
Hopefully we lost her for good.
Give me a heart
Here
attack. There she is. Right.
I've been having a heart attack as well. I'm sorry.
Talk about anxious.
Yeah, we're anxious.
I know. I'm just putting it into practice.
Yeah.
Sorry. Apologies, right. Everybody.
No problems. No worries. Okay, so thank you, Rhiannon. It's you next.
Oh, right. Okay. So apologies about that. So we've discussed how we might define QSA, quiet, shy and anxious children, and we've looked at some of the academic definitions of quiet, shy, or being quiet, shy and anxious. So with this in mind, we'd like to put you into breakout groups where you can discuss what typical behaviours or examples that you might have witnessed or have observed in your setting. And then what we'd like you to do is to nominate a person in your group to post your thoughts again onto the Padlets and give examples on the Padlet. And then, if you could just observe sort of group etiquette in those breakout rooms, turn on your cameras and mics and take part in the discussion, it'd be really appreciated. So Sue is going to post the link for the second Padlet. Yeah. She's done it. It's the chat. Diolch, Sue. And Kelsey, if you wouldn't mind putting everybody into breakout rooms, and we're going to give you 10 minutes to do that.
Sorry, I'm doing a Rhiannon earlier. My Teams has moved everything. So can you see it on yours?
Let's have a little look.
I don't think we've got access to breakout rooms.
No, it doesn't look like it, does it? No,
it's usually the person who's set up or the organisation that's set up the.
Unless I take control. Hang on, I could take control and see if I can do it, Kelsey. Do you want me to try that?
I don't think
No,
I
I don't wanna.
can
Okay.
give you control because I didn't
Right.
set it up.
Okay.
Bear with me. I'll try and see if I can sort it out. Sorry, Rhiannon.
That's okay. It's on. I don't know if you're on the new Teams, but it's two squares, like one square inside or on the side of another square.
I got a feeling because I didn't set the link up,
Yeah.
it's not giving me the
Oh,
permissions.
okay. Oh, well, not to worry. Not to worry. Everyone will just have to do it. They'll just have to do it on their own. So sorry,
Yeah.
guys. You could just do it
We were
on your
hoping
own.
for some
Yeah.
discussion or an
Yeah.
opportunity for discussion, but it doesn't matter.
Never mind. No, not to worry.
I can see that they're Claire and Caitlin in Meadowbank, so they can have a chat together. So, and maybe some of others of you, there's a few of you in the same room together.
Okay, so if everyone's got access to the Padlet, guys, if you can just pop it on the Padlet, or if you want to put it in the chat, that's absolutely fine. And we'll see what you come up with in about 5 minutes, Rhiannon.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I'm just going to stop sharing and then So I can see that the Padlet has dried up a little bit now, but some fantastic responses. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you ever so much. Had we been able to go into breakout rooms, maybe it would have been a bit more of an interactive activity for you to discuss and share your experiences of working with quite shy and anxious children. So I'm going to just change it slightly and ask if you're willing either to pop into the chat if you don't want to speak, or to volunteer. How do you overcome some of these challenges that you've seen? So some people have noted that there are children who keep to themselves or aren't confident enough to join in with group games, so they hang back. So if you had a child like that, what strategies would you implement to support them to try and get them involved? Or those children who are reluctant to talk to other children or adults, or those children who whisper or speak very quietly, or the child who dislikes mess, or prefers to play on their own, finds it difficult to communicate with others. What sort of strategies would you implement to support those children? I don't know if anybody wants to suggest any ideas or things that they do.
We've got a child that sometimes finds it very difficult to join in with things with other children, sort of very much watching from the background. And we, of course, we encourage them as an adult and sort of try and be with them while they're there to give them that sort of bit of security. But we also try and encourage the other children to ask them as well, and like say, oh, do you want to go and ask so and so if they want to join in with you, just to sort of try and take the adult out of the situation, really. Although we're there to support, we also want to sort of build that social strength with them.
Yeah, it can be very challenging, can't it, to sort of try and encourage them to be part, because sometimes you don't want to be the adult forcing it either. Yeah. Thank you. Shirley, I can see that are you wanting to come in? No.
Oh, there's somebody cried in the background.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we've got a child, and what we usually do is when they don't want to join in a group, just have something for two children. So pick two quieter ones with an adult rather than a whole group situation.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely something that really works, because they feel more confident in the smaller groups, and we'll tell you about that when we tell you about our research. So yeah, that's a really good strategy. I've got some ones in the chat, Rhiannon.
Yeah, I was going to say though about moving the children to a quieter area as well. So as you said, smaller numbers and moving to a quiet area of the room or outside, etc. Yeah,
definitely.
So Kate, we have a sensory room which is away from the main space. We also have a key worker which gives them a familiar adult. That's good. Kate, I don't know if you want to come in. You don't have to, but if you want to, please do. Abigail, I find breaking into small groups helps with some of the children so that they start to relate to them, which can boost their confidence in their abilities. That's excellent. Yeah, so again, that smaller group focus, and then the idea that you're boosting confidence. Abigail, I don't know if you want to come in. Please come in if you want to. Michelle, we try and strike up a conversation with the child based on their likes. A child who brought in a caterpillar, we got the hungry, oh that's brilliant, we got the hungry caterpillar story sack and explored that and left it for them to explore. So did that build confidence, Michelle, and communication? Did you see anything arising from that? Claire and Caitlin, in our group yoga sessions, we say manifestations. I am brave like a bear. Oh, that's lovely. And we do our yoga sessions in small groups to help build our confidence. So you'll see there is a small group theme to what we did as well, but it's lovely to see that you're doing the same sort of thing too. I'm in the setting which Kate is in. The sensory room works well. It can be a calm and softening room which can calm them and soothe them in their own time. Yeah, and I think that's another important point, isn't it? Giving space and time. So, you know, and that we're very pressured practitioners. Time is very precious, so sometimes that can be quite tricky. Michelle, yes, 100%. The child really enjoyed this and spoke about the butterfly, etc. And it got a chat. Yeah, that sounds like a lovely activity, which is obviously very child-centered and child-led. So brilliant. I don't know if anybody else has got any other comments. Oh, Jessica. Sit one-to-one or small groups. We can use talking together for encouragement, which can be started with 1 to 4 children at their time scale. Work on having more children there. So am I right in that you build the numbers up as the confidence grows or as you're working with the children? Jessica, are you coming in there?
Yeah. Hiya.
Hello.
With talking together, it's used for speech and language and communication needs. So some of the children on there can be shy, quiet or anxious, and it can just be used, it's like a box, tap box with different things, and there are different activities, but it can start off 1-to-1 and then add up to 4 children into it, so it kind of encourages them, but at a soft rate.
Yeah, that sounds lovely. Yeah. So you're adapting something. Are you adapting something that was created to promote speech and language and communication, but maybe identifying quieter, shy, anxious children? I suppose there's a connection.
Them to engage in the communication, but just on a smaller basis, and it's done in a quiet environment as well. So it's somewhere they're not cautious of what's happening around them.
Yeah, that sounds lovely. Thank you, Jessica. Does anybody else want to come in? Oh, okay. So we'll move on. Bear with me as I flip back to our presentation.
We did have some great answers, and one of the ones that I saw was they seem really sad, and I think that's a shame, isn't it? That they realise themselves that they're not getting the enjoyment out of the session, and again it's something that, because we're so busy in the nursery and everything's so kind of hectic, the more boisterous, the louder children are the ones that take up our time. The quiet children often don't take up our time because they will go off and sit on their own and sit with a book or go and sit in the maybe play on their own in the sand or something, maybe until another child comes in, and then they'll go off. So it's just looking at the fact that they probably don't. And again, if you're looking at outdoor play, they're the children. I mean, say you've got the different little sit and ride bikes and things, and all the children want to go on the red bike because the red bike or the red tricycle is the one they all really want. The little quiet, shy and anxious child will never get a go on the red bicycle. So I suppose it's looking at how we, in our busy day, we just make sure that sometimes that they get that opportunity, because they're not going to get it on their own, because the louder children or the more confident children will get that little red tricycle, won't they? So it's just looking at how we put things in place. And again, some of you'd put on the Padlet about how you facilitate that, you facilitate the fairness aspects. Okay.
Diolch, Sue. Thank you. So who are the quiet, shy and anxious children? So shyness and anxiety don't necessarily go hand in hand, but one can perpetuate the other. So there's an established body of research into children's shyness, but this is mostly from a psychological viewpoint. And it seems that everyday issues and experiences of quiet, shy and or anxious children in the classroom are less well documented. So there's less research around these children within that classroom environment. and along with exploring subsequent findings relating to the educational progress of these children. So there's little evidence which tracks those children in terms of their educational attainment and progress. What we do know is that most young children experience some level of shyness or anxiety in the early years. And then as adults, we forget that the young child on entering early years provision will be given many experiences and situations that are entirely new to them and very unfamiliar. And this can sort of build up on that, maybe nervousness and withdrawal. So they will experience landmark transitions. So, for example, things like starting nursery or school, being separated from close carers or their parents. They will be asked to begin to develop their communication and social skills, and some of those might not be that developed or not as developed as we might expect. And I know that's become a particular issue as a result of lockdown. And this can make the sense of the environment around them become quite overwhelming for some more than others. So as Davis and Cooper note, we need to be more aware that there are quiet, shy and anxious children in all classrooms, and that they are often missed or not seen, and that they're under our radar. So we just don't notice them because there are so many other, we work in very busy classrooms and there are a lot of other demands on our attention. We also need to be mindful of a range of behaviours that are associated with being quiet, shy and or anxious. A lack of confidence, being inhibited, reluctant to take part or get involved in activities, struggling or not engaging with others, or having small or limited social groups, and that they appear to be socially anxious or nervous, hesitant, etc. Obviously, a lot of you have already identified those traits on the Padlet earlier. While some behaviours are characteristic traits of the individual and make them who they are, we also need to be more alert to those children where being quiet, shy and anxious is having a detrimental effect on their engagement and participation in the classroom. So it's about empowering those and making them feel part of the classroom rather than sort of it's detrimental to their participation within the group. These are the children that would benefit from further support and guidance and further nurturing. And we've noticed in discussion with practitioners that many young children are coming into settings with little experiences of being in situations with other young children, or have limited verbal and or social skills. And as I mentioned earlier, primarily due to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. We weren't allowed to go out, children weren't socialised in the same way, didn't have the same opportunities to go to nursery school, etc. And that these issues, and we also know that there are issues around mental health and anxiety, and that they are endemic at the moment in children and young people in all school settings, not just in the early years. So over to you, Sue.
Okay, so you'd already sort of put quite a few of these on the Padlet, and I think we pretty much know what they are. We know that when children are quiet, shy and anxious, they show it in a variety of ways. Some children would have a sort of tantrum or meltdown. Some children would be very withdrawn and sit in the corner, as you said on the Padlet. They often seek reassurance, and one of the things that we found working with older girls, because when we've done this research, we've done the research, the special me time research, is what we'll talk to you about in a moment, is with early years children, but we also did another little round of research called quality me time, which was with year 3-4 children. And what we found when we were doing that research were the quiet girls were the ones that really suffered, because they did, as this wheel is showing here, they really needed reassurance and they really worried about getting things wrong. And I think somebody put that in the Padlet. Maybe that's something that you've already seen in the younger children. They do worry about being perfect quite often for some reason. I think it's probably an anxiety thing. And they make things in a way harder for themselves because they have sort of really high standards when they do things. And it was interesting because I mean I talk about my grandson. My grandson's 4, and I think he is a quiet, shy and anxious boy. But again, we don't make a big thing out of it, or I try to make sure other people don't make a big thing out of it. And he really loves drawing. And the other day, and usually he's quite happy to do drawing, and he does go to a nursery. He goes to a nursery every morning, and I think he gets on okay, fine there. But the other day he was doing a drawing, and he did a little drawing, and I said, "Oh, that's a lovely drawing," and he said, "We know it's not. It's rubbish." And he'd never said that to me before. And I'm thinking, oh, I wonder if somebody said something to him when he was in nursery, maybe when he was drawing something, maybe one of the other children, because it doesn't take a lot to rock their confidence. Whereas before that, previously, he'd been quite happy to draw things, and he thought his drawing was the best drawing in the world. And then all of a sudden he was saying his drawing was rubbish. And I just wondered, again, having me as his grandmother, the poor child, he's always been psychoanalyzed. But you know, I just found that quite, I wondered about that. I wondered what had made him that day think that his drawing wasn't sort of good enough. But going back to the wheel here, so quiet, shy and anxious children may not eat at lunchtime. Sometimes they can have a thing about eating, so that's something to sort of watch out for. Over planning wouldn't be such a thing with your nursery children, but it definitely is with the older quiet, shy and anxious children. Being preoccupied, so being in a little bit of a dream world, you know, staring out into space, and that's quite common. Some of you said headaches and tummy aches. Yes, headaches and tummy aches is definitely a kind of a cry for help, really. But another thing that quiet children do sometimes is that sometimes they'll hurt themselves. Maybe they'll fall over on the playground and they won't tell anybody. So again, that's some of them tell you everything, and some of them don't tell you. And perhaps it's the ones that don't tell you, the ones that need more help and support. Sleeping can be an issue sometimes. Maybe waking up with night terrors, or and again, sleep is a key thing for young children, as we know, and I think quite a lot of young children don't have as much sleep as they actually need. And again, that can make a difference in the classroom as well. Avoiding everyday situations, so and they definitely don't work well with change. So if there's any change to the routine, that can throw them, and they will avoid things that they feel that they're not in control. So maybe outdoors. I know children have had trouble, quiet, shy and anxious children have had difficulties in forest school. Some of them don't like getting their hands dirty. Some of them don't like, I've come across them not wanting to put their hands in sand as well. They don't like the feel of sand. So again, it's just being aware of those things and being sympathetic to them and supporting them through those sort of little ideas they have about things. So yeah, I mean, that most of you said quite a few of those in your Padlet, so I'm sure you're all well aware of what the signs are. But obviously those signs, or those symptoms, whatever you want to call them, those issues will cause that child to overthink. It will stop them from doing things, and thus what it does is it doesn't give a level playing field with the other children. So it does stop them in relation to their ongoing development and ongoing confidence. So it is something that we do need to sort of nip in the bud. And if we nip it in the bud in the early years, then hopefully that then won't build as they become older children. Okay, so thank you, Rhiannon. Next slide, please. Okay. Right. Okay, so basically the considerations that we have to put into place then, and again, thank you for your answers on your Padlets. One of the things that we really do want to sort of set out is that being shy is not a negative. It can be a negative if we're not supporting those shy children. but being quiet in a classroom can actually be can make a more harmonious classroom if we have more quiet. The world is, however, geared towards extroverts, hence looking at shyness or looking at being quiet is seen as a deficit. And I think it's also really clear to us from the research that we've done is that if you have a quiet or shy child, very often there's a quiet or shy parent, because it's often perpetuated, and thus that parent might be reluctant to speak to you as a practitioner. So in a way, you have to kind of nurture that relationship with the parent as well. So shy children often go unnoticed because usually they're good, for want of a better word, and they'll get on with things and they don't cause you much grief. So therefore, because of that, we tend to, not that we ignore them, but we're busier with the more vocal children, with the louder children, the more boisterous children, and the quiet children are sort of left to kind of get on with their own little things. They often worry about change or transition, as we learned in the previous slide, and they do face unique academic and social challenges at school. So school is not a wonderful environment for them, and nursery obviously is much better because we're much more nurturing in the nursery school, and we're much more aware of children at all of their different stages of development. So I think really what would be great is if we had the model like they do in Finland, where we had nursery education from 3 to 7, and we let the children develop and grow in their own time. Whereas what we do, as you know, they have their lovely year in nursery and then bam, they're off to school, where it's an even faster paced environment. There's even less chance of that sort of really specific nurture, because these children need real specific nurture in order for them to reach their potential. So shy and anxious children can experience additional stress when performing everyday activities due to their negative self-perceptions. I mean, as I say, my little grandson now saying to me the other day he's rubbish at drawing because they're very, very critical of themselves. They're very overcritical, and also they find it very difficult to access things like other children's games. They also find it very difficult when they're in a large group to put their hand up or ask for things. Again, another story, my daughter would kill me if she knew I was telling all these stories about her. My youngest daughter actually when she was in school, she actually broke her finger at lunchtime in the playground, but they had a gate that went from the one part of the playground into the other, and I don't know how she did it, but she got her finger stuck in the little bolt thing of the gate, and she went into the classroom, and again, a very quiet child, she did say to the lunchtime supervisor, "Oh, I really hurt my finger," and they just said, "Oh, go over," like we do. And I mean, again, I'm probably guilty of this when I was in nursery school. "Oh, go and get a wet paper towel, wrap it around your finger," and she did. And then she said to me, when she came home, she said, "Oh, Mum, I really hurt my finger today." And I said, "Well, didn't you tell anyone?" She said, "Well, I did tell Mrs. whoever, and she told me to put a wet paper towel." And then I said, "Well, we need to go and get that seen to, because it looked really bad, the finger." And she had actually broken her finger, and so she'd sat the whole afternoon she was in about year 2 at the time. She'd sat the whole afternoon with a broken finger because she and I said, "Why didn't you tell anyone?" So again, that's an extreme case, but this is the fact that we don't, we don't give them sometimes the sort of the attention that they actually need. So I think we've got to just be aware of the fact that introverted children need support from both parents and teachers to help them blossom, to help them find their voice. And the world is, as we know, geared towards extroverts. So we need to understand introversion. We need to make sure we don't see it as a negative. And we just help those children to have a voice in the classroom. And that's really, it's really quite straightforward. And again, what we need to do, as we found in our research, we need to be looking at putting in putting in place specific interventions for them. And we know that through the work of the guru of quiet, shy and anxious research, somebody called Ray Crozier, who is a professor at Cardiff University, and he's one of the world leading researchers around shyness and blushing, actually. And he did some work. I don't know if any of you remember, I think it was Panorama or something like that, a program with Rod Gilbert. I don't know if anybody's seen the program. So Rod Gilbert, as you know, is a comedian, and I think unfortunately he's recovering from cancer, I think, at the moment, Rod Gilbert. But the program at the time was all about him being a quiet person and a shy person. And Ray Crozier did a research, and Rod was part of the research cohort, and it was all about how, even though he's a stand-up comedian, he's still a really shy person. And what he said in the program was that although he can speak to big big arenas of people, he finds it really, really difficult to go into like a coffee shop and ask for a cup of coffee, because he's really shy of going up to the counter, especially if there's a queue, which you'd never believe seeing him on the TV. But there are quite a few sort of big celebrities who would call themselves introverts and quiet, and that's quite interesting. That's another thing that we've had a look at through our research. So it's all very fascinating, this stuff, and once you start to read around, but anyway, I'm going to pass you over to Rhiannon now, who's going to tell you a little bit more about the research.
Sorry, I was on mute, trying to find the unmute button. So before we started our research, we've had a look at other people's research. And we, being shy is a trait in an individual, but it can develop, it can abate, and it can develop in response to environmental stimuli. So whatever's going around with the individual can impact on how shy or how withdrawn they feel. And I suppose even, people who aren't shy sometimes feel that if they're in unfamiliar environments, etc. What we are quite keen to look at is this connection between a negative association between being shy and being within your peer group, or your status within your peer group. And there's a negative association between shyness and friends, or having friends, or being how you're regarded within your peer group, and also with social emotional difficulties. And this can also suppress or stifle an individual's engagement in classroom activities and discourse. And we've put here the research, and we're not expecting people to go and have a look, but just for you to know that we've actually looked at other work that people have done, and these are some of the conclusions that we've come to from reading their work. There's a connection between maternal shyness and shyness in infancy. So maybe you'd like to think of some of the children that you've got in your class that are particularly shy, and maybe consider whether their parents, in particular their mothers, are shy. And that there's a longer term impact on children who are very shy on their engagement and attainment in the classroom or academically. And this is something that we wanted to address, because that, in a way, that shouldn't happen. So it's about providing a space for those young people, young children, to feel that they can express themselves without being overcome with shyness, that they're allowed to sort of flourish in their own way, so that they can engage with whatever's going on around them and achieve academically. And as Sue mentioned earlier, Ray Crozier in his work has identified that these children need specific interventions. So they need sort of targeted, focused support in order to help them flourish. And so what we've done is we've had a look at this research, and we came across this conceptual model by Booz. I'm going to show you now. And this sort of resonated with us. So this research has found that the culture within schools and educational settings is focused on proactive participation in communication and learning. So we're asking our learners to be very proactive in the way that they engage with learning, and that we ask them to vocalize that or express that in quite an overt way. and that teachers are disposed to favouring responsive, talkative children. Okay, and that's not a criticism by any means, but I think those talkative children are the ones that you respond to because they're talking to you. You might not find it so easy to notice the more quiet children because they're quiet, and your time is taken up with those more talkative, more demanding children. So Booz et al. Study in 2015 looked at shyness and engagement and found that shy children are more likely to face peer rejection than their less shy peers, which in turn impacts upon teacher sensitivity. So this indicates that shy and withdrawn children tend to have fewer social interactions, so they communicate less and close relationships with their peers and teachers. Furthermore, Booz et al. Surmise that fewer opportunities to engage with and support from teachers can have a subsequent impact upon learning. So because there's fewer interactions between teachers and these shy children, this has a subsequent impact upon their academic development and engagement. Practitioners who were responsive to the needs of quiet, shy and anxious children tended to create supportive environments that were conducive to better engagement in the classroom. Their model, which you can see on the slide, provides a conceptualization of the impact of shyness in the classroom environment. And it recognises the classroom as central to the development of children in our more industrialised countries. So the model examines the potential of contextual effects of peer interactions and peer sensitivity upon children's academic engagement. And what we were interested in doing is raising awareness of quiet, shy and anxious children amongst practitioners by developing a bespoke programme so that teacher sensitivity, which you can see at the bottom of the model, and shyness is raised, and so that we can address that gap between their sensitivity and shyness. So our intervention aimed to bridge that gap, so to raise teacher awareness of those shy children by creating an intervention. So what we're going to ask you to do now is another Padlet, but again, I'm really sorry that you can't work as a group, but I want you to think about some of the barriers that you think quiet, shy and anxious children face in early years settings. So what barriers might you see?
What have we got so far, Rhiannon?
I can share the screen.
Yeah, okay.
So yeah,
we've got a few more now. There we go.
Speaking a different language. English is an additional language, so yeah, that can be a challenge. Yeah. Maybe communication as a whole can be a challenge, can't it? If they haven't got the communication skills to explain what they want or what they need, not having the confidence to answer questions or to talk. Undiagnosed ALN. Yeah, due to them not wanting to talk about difficulties. Yeah, ALN. Confidence, maybe not having the social skills and knowing how to play, not having had that experience before they've come to school.
Exactly. I think the other thing as well, I don't know what you guys have seen as a result of COVID. I mean, from speaking to practitioners, they've definitely seen a difference in the children coming into nursery. Maybe they don't have the same confidence in speaking. Again, I know people have told me that when children pick up a book, they try and swipe it as if it's an iPad. So I think we've inherited a lot of issues simply because of COVID. I don't know if that's something that you guys have seen, because obviously you're at the the kind of cutting edge really when it comes to working with young children. Yeah, Gemma said not having opportunities to mix with other children due to COVID. Yeah, definitely, Gemma.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed with my class this year, is that they don't even know how to sort of play in parallel with other children. It's so many playgroups were closed. They they don't know how to be around them. And I've got lots of first-time parents who are really anxious, and lots of first-time children who are really anxious, and it's really hard trying to get to talk to any of them. It's really tricky.
Yeah, it's kind of, it was kind of a perfect storm, really, wasn't it? And because we weren't aware, well, we were sort of learning by numbers, really, weren't we, when it all happened? None of us really knew what to do. We had a little, the Welsh Government did put a little, well, quite a lot of funding in, actually, for us to do. They've sponsored quite a few different pieces of research to look at the effects of COVID on children and young people, and we know quite a few of our colleagues have been doing some work to sort of record what happened. But again, because it's sort of research which is going to take a long time, we're probably not going to know the answers to some of the research that's gone on for quite a long time. But I think there's definitely a problem with children. Again, my daughter, the mother of the grandchild, she's a teacher, and she's told me that in her year 1 class, there are 2 children in year 1 that are still in nappies. And that's year 1. So I mean, that's something that as an early years teacher myself, I mean, I would have been shocked to have children in my nursery in nappies, but I know that's more common now since COVID for a variety of reasons.
Somebody else has posted something I think is really pertinent across a continuum, not just in the early years. I mean, in all school settings is attendance. And if you've got erratic or a lot of non-attendance in school, then that's going to impact upon your ability to feel part of the setting, to develop that confidence and to develop those social and emotional skills that you need when you're working or being part of that setting.
Definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. And again, there's a good one there, anonymous. Well, you're all anonymous, but anonymous. Misinterpreting a child's behaviour as disruptive or naughty without realising there may be an underlying reason, i.e. the child does not understand. Yeah, absolutely. And again, we look at things, perhaps not joining in with something, you might look at that as challenging behaviour, but it's really that child is sort of having a real dilemma as to how to join a group of group of children.
I think the Padlet is misbehaving now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, sorry, Amanda. We don't know what's going on with it all.
The link is just above. I'm hoping that, you know, with the sandy colour. But if you want to put your comments in the chat, that's perfectly fine as well.
Yes, don't worry about that. Yeah, and Gemma has put a comment in. Thank you, Gemma. You've still got lots of them in your nursery in nappies. Yeah, which is, again, it makes it very hard for you guys then, doesn't it?
And I think the consequences of the pandemic are long term, aren't they? It's you know, we haven't gone back to normal because we've got to sort of understand the disruption that occurred in those 2 years, really, where we weren't allowed to socialise with other people, you know, and we weren't able to communicate in a normal way, and the impact of that is significant over a longer period of time, not only in the early years but across you know, across the board. I would say that even us as adults have been significantly affected by it too.
So, definitely. Yeah, there's 2 people have said lack of space to have a quiet area. Yeah, absolutely, we take that on board. No quiet space available to encourage participation for children that struggle in loud, busy environments. Yeah, and again, I think that is the fault of the people that design our settings or our nurseries. I think if you go back to the sort of the model of nurseries from the 1940s, if you look at the work of the nursery pioneers such as Margaret MacDonald, and in those days they used to have a nursery. Now there's a specific name for this nursery and I can't remember what it's called, but it was a nursery where they had outdoor area in the middle, and the nursery was in a sort of a block around that nursery. And I think in those days, when they planned for sort of nursery schools, if you like, a little bit like my daughter was very lucky, and I was actually very lucky because I did teach there, Bainswell nursery, which was a standalone nursery in Newport. I don't know if anybody knows New Bainswell Nursery, and Jyoti Mathkar, who was the head teacher. I know somebody's here from Newport today. They had it was a standalone, and it was built as a nursery school, if you like, and that had lots of different classrooms and lots of lovely areas. Whereas I know we're not quite so lucky in other settings to have those spaces and have kind of like a breakout rooms, if you like, and then a place where the children can all come back together. So yeah, I think that's a really good point, the fact that we don't have enough quiet spaces, perhaps in more modern nursery settings.
I think another comment came in just as you were speaking, Sue, about a breakdown of communication with parents.
Yeah.
And I think that can be really tricky as well to navigate. And the expectation that parents might have of their children might be unrealistic, or they might not want to accept that there is that their child might not be as developed in the way that they should be. That can be tricky too.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, again, I don't know if what you guys think, but maybe things like the fact that now parenting is much more on TikTok or on Instagram, and people see models of sort of families which are perfect families, and then they think, oh, perhaps, so maybe maybe that's an issue that we have now that perhaps we didn't have when I was a nursery teacher. So I think that could be another thing going on from that point, Rhiannon. Kind of idealized family, which doesn't really exist, because most parents do the best they possibly can, really. Okay, so does anybody want to say anything else now about that, or should we go on to the next activity? Okay, thank you for everybody for your comments. There were some really useful ones, really interesting ones. Okay, so we've got a little video clip for you now. This is about 5 minutes long. And we have tested this one, haven't we, Kelsey? So we know that this is going to work. So we've got, I don't know if any of you have heard of Susan Cain. She's an American writer and academic, and her sort of interests are around quiet people, quiet young people. She doesn't write about the early years, and this little clip is not about early years, but we wanted to play it for you because it gives a real flavour around this idea of what an introvert is and how we deal with them in a school setting. So she's talking about university students in this clip, but basically it's around the book that she wrote, which is a really good book. Actually, it's quite easy. It's quite an easy reading book, although it's an academic-ish book. It's also quite easy to read, and so she's the author of a book called Quiet: The Power of Introverts in a World that Can't Stop Talking. And basically she tells us about the need to take time to listen to our quiet little people, in this case students, and not plan our classrooms or our settings around loudness or loud ones. So it's this idea of sort of taking that time to really think about how we deal with things. And also another thing that she often says is, why are we obsessed with group work? I know we've been trying to get you into groups this afternoon, but why are we obsessed with group work? Because some children really don't like working in groups, and we say, oh, come on, let's all work together, where really those children might just be better off just be working on their own or working with a partner, rather than making them go into a group where they're going to feel really uncomfortable. So anyway, have a little listen to Susan Cain. It's about 5 minutes, and hopefully, and Kelsey, if you can give me a thumbs up that you can hear it, and just we're going to have a little chat when we've played the video, and just see what your thoughts are.
Clearly introverts who describe themselves as extroverts.
Historically, introverted students have simply been told that they need to speak up more in class.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a flaw in attributing grades to that direct classroom participation?
I do, and it not only because it penalizes introverts, but really in some ways more fundamentally because a system where you're just rewarding people for doing this or just speaking out, it's a system that's encouraging a lot of blather. It's not a system that's encouraging people to be thoughtful or to be respectful of other people's time. This is kind of a cultural thing. So in many Far Eastern cultures, there's much less of an emphasis placed on this. And I was talking with a woman who had come to this country from Shanghai, and she had been raised in that system. And she told me that she kind of couldn't believe it when she got to American University. And the way she put it, she said, everybody just raises their hand, and the more they do that, the professor nods respectfully. And she said, and they're all talking nonsense. And there's this feeling that she had that they're taking up everybody else's time. But the more you do that, the more you're actually rewarded.
So it's a Western ideal?
In many ways, it is a Western ideal. Yeah. And so I think that we often recommend getting rid of the phrase class participation and thinking instead of classroom engagement, which is kind of a deeper way of looking at it. And it recognizes that there's a lot of different ways of being engaged with material and of being engaged with your fellow classmates. And for some people, they might do it by talking deeply with a classmate when class is done, or by engaging with a professor at office hours or whatever. There's a lot of different ways to kind of get in there.
And are people good at self-identifying as introvert or extrovert? Should we assume it's accurate when a student tells me that she is one or the other?
Oh, that's a good question. I'd say sometimes yes and sometimes no. Probably the biggest inaccuracy that I see people making, especially during the college years, I see a lot of people who are clearly introverts who describe themselves as extroverts. And I think that's because of the social stigma that they might feel about being an introvert. And so they'll kind of grit their teeth through a lot of situations that they actually find not to their taste.
So building on that, then, what do you think is the best learning environment that, in particular, introverts can thrive in?
Right. Well, for introverts, I would say, first of all, making much more space for independent work. I would really bring that back more centrally into the college curriculum. And from what I understand, we're moving farther and farther away from that. So I think, having students present and write individual papers and do deep thought on their own. I think of the model that existed, which isn't necessarily financially practical, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. I think it's sort of intellectually useful. A model at an Oxford where the student would sit one-on-one with a professor and really think through ideas. Those are the way introverts want to process things. They want to do it kind of either in solitude or in one-on-one or in very small groups in a really deep and thoughtful way, as opposed to a setting where you're more like jockeying for position, and it feels more like the advancing ideas is more about performance and about who's taking over when. I think we want to kind of get away from that. So I would say too that when we're structuring groups, we should be thinking about, okay, what role is each person going to play? Make sure each person knows what their role is, and really structure discussions carefully so you're making sure that you're inviting everyone into the situation instead of getting into hearing from only the most dominant voices.
So you were listening to Susan Kane there talking about how she envisages supporting quiet people at university, and maybe there's some analogies that you can draw from that you can use maybe in the early years classroom, maybe thinking about how you organise groups of children, looking at those, getting to know those individual children and maybe sort of pairing them. And I know some of you have mentioned that earlier about how you sort of group children quite carefully. So this leads quite nicely to our project, and I'm just going to give you a short overview of what we did. We had, obviously, we've given you the research background and where we were coming from. So we read from Crozier's work that an intervention to support the quiet, shy and anxious children can be very supportive in an educational environment. So we wanted to see whether such a short-term targeted intervention could help quiet, shy and anxious learners to become more confident in everyday classroom interactions. So we were trying to think of something to build confidence and increase engagement from those children from their own volition, so that they wanted to take part, and we wanted to provide an environment where they felt empowered to do so. So as part of the project, we wanted to provide a safe space, a quiet space, and these are some of the barriers that you identified earlier. So we wanted to make sure that there was a space for these children to begin expressing themselves and to develop that confidence to be able to speak up, to be able to discuss with the teacher, and to be able to share their ideas with others. And again, it was based on Crozier's work that small group and targeted interventions especially support learners who are quiet, shy and anxious. And we were really fortunate. We put in a bid for some funding, and both Sue and I were fortunate to get the funding. So it all started really well. We started working on it. We got the funding. We developed the interventions, and then COVID hit. So it really scuppered our plans. We've got everything ready to go. We'd got training for practitioners that we'd recorded. We'd identified schools from across Wales to take part in the project, and then COVID hit. So we had to sort of rejig what we did, and also to ask our practitioners who were, taking part in the project to be a bit more flexible in the way that they approached it. So Sue is going to explain more about what we did as part of the project.
Thank you, Rhiannon. As Rhiannon said, we were really lucky to have some funding, and it did make a real difference, because we were able to have some time to do the research. But what we did was we worked with schools from across the whole of Wales. Rhiannon is a Welsh speaker, so we were very lucky to have her on the project. So we had Welsh medium schools and English medium schools across Wales. We put adverts out via sort of Twitter or our networks, and we did get a considerable number of schools back in. I think it was 60. Was it 60? I can't remember the number of schools now. I should have written this down, but it was at least, well, it's over 50. I'm sure we had over 50 schools. But the problem was, as Rhiannon said, a note to self: never do a big research project during a pandemic, because we had some issues with, obviously, with the schools taking part in the research, because COVID was on board, and the children were in their bubbles. They couldn't mix the children into fit. Oh, we had all the issues that you could possibly have. We had, but we did manage to do it, and we did get some really useful findings. I'd carried the research out previously to this round, because as I told you earlier, I did this as part of my my doctorate. So we've had quite a few different sort of iterations of the research, but we've always found the same things: that quiet, shy and anxious children need small groups, and they need an interested adult to support them. So what we did was we provided training on how to run the programme. The programme is very, very straightforward, and I'll go through it, the different activities, in a moment. So we gave the practitioners a handbook. We also gave them 2 hours of training, plus we gave them opportunities to have drop-in sessions where they would speak to each other as well, on how to use the handbook and how to run the special me time programme, which was the early years version. So we held drop-in sessions during the project so they could ask questions, and we what we also asked them to do was send in their baselines and reflections on the project, and I'll show you what the baseline looked like as well in a moment. So they took a baseline at the beginning of the programme, and that was based around various different social and emotional development indicators, and I'll show you that in a second. And we also asked them to reflect on the project. But what we did find, and it was something that was especially relevant for this round of the project, we found that the practitioners who themselves were quiet people, or quiet, shy and anxious, for want of a better word, they were the ones that took the most care in not only supporting the children but writing up the findings of the research, and they really took real care in separating the children out, whereas the other practitioners, although they were engaged with the programme and they did carry it out, sometimes what they were more interested in was how the session went. So they reported back more on the session rather than the individual children, and that was a learning point for us as well. We realised that if we were to do this research again, if we get some more funding, then we'll spend much more time with the practitioners in getting them to really kind of take the time and the care with the reflections on the individual children. So we had 2 cycles of the special me time in the school term between January and April. Next slide, please, Rhiannon. So there were a range of activities, and the thing to kind of point out here is that the activities aren't important. And I'm saying that sounds a bit, what's she going on about? It wasn't the activities as such, it was the time spent with the children, which was really key. And what we did, we gave the practitioners the session plans simply to save them time for gathering the equipment. Everything was really simple. All of the little activities, you could source them very easily within your own settings. So there were 6 different activities, and you can see the pictures which correspond. The first one with the flower was called Quietly Appreciating Beautiful Things, and what that one was all about was, and again, the emphasis was on quiet, the emphasis was on calm, and also the fact that the children were taken out of the busy nursery, and the session was carried out maybe in the staff room, or if the school was lucky enough to have a nurture room, it would be in the nurture room. So Quietly Appreciating Beautiful Things was just the practitioner taking into the session maybe a beautiful flower or a lovely shell or something lovely. And I've got some photographs which I can show you as well in a moment of what the practitioners did. But it's just making it really special and really lovely and relaxing for the children. So some of the practitioners put on lovely whale music or something lovely, relaxing music, and a scented candle, nice bean bag, so the children could relax. And the children just took time just passing around the beautiful shell and talking about it. And because it was the first session, some of the children didn't want to talk, and that was absolutely fine. But the difference we found from session 1 to session 6 was remarkable. So these children went out for the special me time activities once a week. All they had was 1 hour or an hour-ish. Sometimes it was 45 minutes, but they had an hour each week where they went out with one practitioner in the little groups of 4 to 6. And the difference we found in 6 weeks was remarkable. So that was the first session. Then the next one was jam sandwich activity, where they again, super simple. All the practitioner needed was loaf of bread and a pot of jam, and the children would make the jam sandwiches, again talking to the children, taking turns. And when they'd made the jam sandwiches, they were then allowed to share the jam sandwiches in a little party with somebody outside the group that they were allowed to ask to join into the group. All worked really well, but one thing that made me really sad, and this was when some of my students did this in one of the first iterations. My student had her little quiet, shy and anxious children. They all made their jam sandwiches. They then all decided who they wanted to invite in for the party. and she had one little boy, call him Ryan. She said Ryan made his jam sandwiches, and then he said, oh, I want Scott to come into the group. Now my student knew that Scott was one of the most popular boys, never ever spoke to Ryan, never played with Ryan, and she said to him, oh, you sure you want Scott to come into the group? Yes, I want Scott to come in and join the jam, join the party. So and she didn't think it was a good idea, and she said at the time, obviously this was this child's choice. So off she went and got Scott to come in. So Scott came in, and she said Scott was terrible in the group. He disrespected all the children in the group. He said, oh, why am I in here eating jam sandwiches? Just trashed the whole little party. But it's just fascinating, isn't it, that little Ryan, all he wanted to do was invite Scott into the party because Scott was one of the popular boys. So you learn so much about these children by doing these activities. But she said if she'd run it again, she would have said, no, let's not have Scott, let's have somebody else in. But you sometimes these things happen, and it is what it is. So the next activity then, tent activity, again, really simple, just a little pop-up tent. Take the children outdoors, and we recommended that you read We're Going on a Bear Hunt, and again the practitioners all put their different spin on these activities. So some of the practitioners really went to town, they made little footprints, bear footprints, and the children follow. You can use these however you want to use them. The emphasis is on the time and the chatting to the children, with the children. So the next one, I'm proud of myself, where the children made little sort of people with things that they'd done and they were proud of, and they gave each other praise for doing their special things they were proud of. And the next one then, a Special Me, was where they again, and similar, where they just praised each other for doing good things, or they chose people maybe to do something within the group that would make them feel special. And then the final one, What's in the Box, and this was a sweet one, where you just a cardboard box, and you just have a little mirror, pass it round the group, and then you say to the children, oh, what's in this box? What's special about this box? There's something really, really special inside this box. And of course, when they open up the box, they see themselves at the bottom of the box in a little mirror. So they're the special things. So very, very simple, really easy activities. And it's not about the activities, it's about the time, that special time those children have. Because bear in mind that those children are very rarely chosen for or they very rarely put their hand up to be chosen for things, because they're quiet. They're usually the ones that don't get chosen to be the helper heavy or whatever in that particular day. Okay, so thank you, Rhiannon. If you put the next slide on, please. Okay, so this is an example of the baseline. Those of you that remember the good old days with the foundation phase, this is the Welsh Government Personal Social Development, Wellbeing, Cultural Diversity framework, which we've used and adapted. So you take a baseline at the beginning of the programme. So you're looking at things like, for example, express and communicate different feelings and emotions, those of their own and of others. So you can see this little person had 0 at the beginning of the baseline, and then after 6 weeks of Special Me time, you can see they've then got a 3 at the end of that baseline. So they've gone up. We scored the children out of 5, so 0 to 5. And then as you go down, let's have a look. For example, in the orange one, respond to ideas and questions enthusiastically, sensitively, creatively and intuitively. First of all, they started off at 0, and then they go up to a 3. Some of the children only went up maybe from 0 to 1. We had, in all of the rounds of this work, we never had children who went from a 1 to a 0. We never had children going backwards in their development. So we knew that every time the Special Me time was rolled out, the children were improving on all of these different indicators. And again, this one at the bottom, this is a big one, isn't it? Ask for assistance when needed. So this little person's got up from 1 to 2. So you can see that in all of the and we found this to be the case in all of the rounds. We haven't got all the stats this afternoon. We didn't want to bore you with all the stats, but we could show you with the sort of the stats for the last round, and we had some real changes in the children's shyness and anxieties. Okay, next slide, please, Rhiannon. So this one is a collage just taken by one of the participants from the research, and you can see the children in this one having their little jam sandwich tea party in the first picture, putting out the numbers of the cups. And again, these are children. The interesting thing about these children is they were, say there's 6 children in a group. These children weren't friends prior to the research. Even though they were all quite shy and anxious children, they didn't necessarily ever play with each other. So the special me time intervention helped them and supported them to find other quite shy and anxious children in the classroom or in the nursery setting. And then this one here is the quietly appreciating beautiful things, where they've got looking at they've got a very sensory picture. They've got beautiful little fairy lights and an aromatherapy thing. So they thought they were very special. They thought they were very nurtured when they went out into the small groups. And then this is a very sweet one. This is them at the end of the 6 weeks. And the children were feeling much more confident, and again they were able to chat with each other, ask questions, and again somebody put earlier about the children speaking in very quiet voice. This little person here with the blue t-shirt on, he was the youngest of a number of children in the family, and the older siblings just spoke for him. And when he came into nursery, he didn't speak. He was an elective mute. And after 6 weeks of the programme, he not only was speaking to other children, he actually went to speak to the caretaker and asked the caretaker for something. So the people at the nursery were absolutely amazed. And we had parents as well who thanked us for the difference that the programme made with the children. It's not complicated, it's not a complex programme, it's just giving them a little bit of self-esteem, giving them a little bit of confidence in a small group. And what happened as well, when they went out into the main nursery or the main classroom, that confidence went with them. So it wasn't only in the special me time sessions. So it's been an absolute pleasure and a joy to do this research and to see the change. What we would have loved to have done, wouldn't we, Rhiannon, is to have been able to follow these children up over a longer period of time. So this little person now, he must be in year, I don't know, whatever year group he's in, year 1, year 2. If we could find out what he's up to now, and if it's kind of carried on that confidence. But that's for another day. That's when we get some maybe some more money for funding.
We need more funding for that. We
do. Okay, thank you.
So just to tell you what our findings were, and these are the general findings, but we had a couple of settings that really enjoyed the intervention, and even though they had 2 opportunities to do it, they did it with more than, we asked them to do it with small groups of about maximum of 6 pupils, a minimum of 4, and some of them were doing like multiple groups if they were able to staff it, and just said that the impact it had on some of the children was quite astounding. There was one, we went to observe some groups, so each of us on the project went to observe a school. And there was one that we went to where the teacher said to us the child had been coming, I think it was session 4, and that the mother had come in and said that her neighbour or her friend had noticed a significant difference in the confidence and communication skills of this child, and wondered what had happened, because she was communicating so much better. She seemed far more confident in herself, and the mother could only say that it was was this intervention that had supported her. And as Sue was saying, the teachers noticed that that there was a difference in the behaviours of the young children in the classroom following this short intervention. What we don't know is how long term that is, because we haven't been able to sort of go back and find out if these children are still as confident. So our findings were that small groups of quiet, shy and anxious children are effective. So having these small groups, having this intervention is effective and enables children to become more confident. Practitioners liked the focus on quiet and calm, so they liked the activities. There was, as we said, there was flexibility in interpreting those activities according to how you wanted to, or how the practitioners wanted to organise them. We also had to be a lot more flexible because of COVID, and children were in bubbles. And so, for example, with the picnic party with the jam sandwiches, they weren't able to invite their friends. And they weren't able to share, but the practitioners were quite creative in organising something different, so that it was still a worthwhile and useful activity. And you know, they were very creative, and we were taking the ideas about how to sort of maybe change the activities or adapt the activities according to the environment that they were working in. Quiet children need quiet, calm spaces to think, and they need time. So as Sue was saying, we suggested that the activities were about an hour long, and we provided guidance in terms of asking for responses. So to be calm, to wait for responses, to give children time to think, and to make them feel at ease, and not to expect any change from the first activity, but that it would improve over time. And giving children an opportunity to lead the sessions, to give them the onus, so you know, to build that confidence in them, to start leading, start directing the activities, and that empowered the children, and that gave them a lot more confidence when they went into the mainstream classroom. And a lot of the children were very proud to be chosen to be part of this programme, and some teachers recorded that other children in the classroom were saying, can I come? I hear what's going on, I really want to be part of it. So it was quite a cool thing for some of the children to be going out with the teacher for these special times, and they were pleased to be part of it. They didn't feel that it was something that they were, you know, they were chosen to be special, and they were quite pleased with that. It sort of gave them a lot more confidence. Some additional things that we found, particularly with children who are multilingual, and maybe you know this already, that children, when they're acquiring a new language, often go through a silent period. So, you know, if you've got children that haven't been exposed to English or Welsh, they go through that silent period when they're first learning a language. So they may appear shy and quiet, but it's maybe because they're trying to process that new language and trying to build up their skills, and that this is an active phase when they're listening out for important information, such as when one word ends and another begins, and for familiar words. So they're trying to make sense of that new language that's around them, and I know some of you mentioned that in terms of the barriers, and yeah, it's just being aware of, you know, what is typical development in children that are learning new languages, and what might be shy and anxious, and that can be quite difficult to tease out. So that brings us to the end of our presentation, and we've got about a quarter of an hour or so to take questions from you. So we're happy to do that in the chat, or, you know, just speak out. But I'm just going to move on to show you some additional resources before we go to the discussion. So this is the Susan Cain TED Talk, so the link is there. And the book that Sue mentioned earlier, Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. It's quite thought-provoking. And if you're a quiet and shy or quiet person, it might resonate with you. And then some guidance this is our report that we wrote for Welsh Government on supporting young, quiet, shy and anxious children in school, and then we had a paper from that as well. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. Yeah.
Also to say as well, we are writing a little mini guide for Early Years Wales, which will be with you fairly soon, and I'm sure Kelsey will tell you more about that another time. So just to flag that one, we're very much looking forward to producing that for you guys as well.
Yeah, and Jessica has asked if I can put the links in. Yeah, I'll do that now. I've got to stop sharing to do it, but I'll do it now.
Okay. Anybody got anything they'd like to ask us?
Oh, there's a hand up. Gemma's got her hand up. Sorry, Gemma, just noticed.
Yeah, sorry, Gemma. What would you like to ask?
Sorry, I'm having loads of trouble today with technology.
Oh, Gemma! Hi, Gemma. I didn't know it was Gemma. I know Gemma.
I wanted to ask, so the way my nursery runs is we do just free flow play. So basically the children come in, we attempt to do a Bora Dar song on the carpet that this year has just gone completely out the window. The cohort I had, my rising threes in January, just aren't able to sit at all. So we just basically have free flow play from about 9:10 until about 11:15. We do a tidy up time and then we have our snack, and that's when I try and do some input. I've got a high number of EAL learners, and I'm just thinking, how would I do something like this activity? Because it does feel like organised chaos, but chaos nevertheless. In the past. So
yeah, sure. No, I absolutely take on board that it's almost as if the children are really developmentally behind, aren't they? I think that you can only really do this in small groups. It doesn't work well in a whole class setting. So maybe perhaps do it with, I mean, we 4 to 6 we advise, so perhaps with 4 of the children, if you can have any space to take them out into a quiet area.
Okay. We've only got one room, so that's the issue.
Yeah, that's the difficulty, isn't it, for people? Yeah.
I think we did.
I don't have any high enough level TAs to be able to leave the room, so I've always got to be there on my TAs a level 2.
That's difficult then. That is difficult. I don't know.
I was
going to say,
yeah, well, I don't know if this works either, and it does depend on the weather. But we did advocate that if you could do it outside, that might be better. But again, I appreciate you might be struggling in terms of space.
Yeah, no, outside could probably work. We do have more space outside.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The pop-up tent. If you've got a little pop-up tent.
Thank you.
I mean, when we did the project, it was January to April. I mean, it's not the best time to go outside, is it? For to do sit down activities. But yeah, maybe in the summer that might work.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you.
Thanks, Gemma.
Kate, I can see you've got your hand up.
Yeah, hiya. There was 2 things. The first one was, are you doing the training again? Have you got it planned? Because I think it'd benefit quite a few of the practitioners that we work with. And then the second thing, it was to comment really. Gemma commented in the chat earlier on saying the change in the curriculum guidance on focus groups and allowing free play can maybe overwhelming where children don't know how to mix and talk. We work in Flying Start. We do ITAs. So like years ago, when we used to, like, obviously we do our planning, then you'd have your activities in all the different areas, you'd have your like fixed routine with 2 minutes, a fixed routine with like circle time, story time, snack time, everything else. Whereas ITAs, I don't know if any of you are that familiar with it, but it's kind of basically a bit of a free-for-all. So they've got multiple choice in all the areas. There's, so if you've got your small world area, in the small world area, they've got the trains, the cars, the blocks, the people. you know, and there's just so much stuff, and especially since COVID, we've noticed that they're just tipping boxes and it's just chaos. So we're, like Gemma has said, it can sometimes be a little bit overwhelming. I can think of one child in particular that we had, and she'd just stand there and like on the corner of one of the barriers and just look around the room, because I think there's just so much stuff out. I mean, I totally get the benefits of it as, and I you know, I can see why we do it and things like that, but I think the choice of equipment when you've got children that have got additional learning needs or like shy and quiet and anxious, it's just so much. Like,
it's full on.
They don't know us. They've only just turned 2. They come into this. Some of them have got, from the areas that we work in as well, very limited toys and equipment at home and adult interaction at home, and they come into this room full of people and stuff, and it's just
it's just full on.
I mean, we are lucky in our setting at the moment because we've got the sensory room, so we have got that space where we can just take them just for, you know, 5-10 minutes if they need to, if it gets a little bit overwhelming. But I've worked in settings before where you're just in a big open hall, and we've had nothing but barriers to separate those areas off, which obviously doesn't cancel out the noise. That's really difficult. That is really difficult. Yeah, so hear you on that one. It's just busy, like everywhere. It's just busy all the time.
I suppose in those environments you can see how easy it is to lose children, not physically, you know, those quiet children, or miss them, not see them, because it's quite overwhelming, isn't it?
I mean, it's overwhelming for us.
I was just going to say for the adults, I can imagine.
With all the best intentions, you've got staff in the areas ready for the interactions, but there's just such a mix-up of equipment, you know, that it's almost impossible. It's almost like they've got too much choice.
I was just going to say, maybe perhaps don't put so much out. I mean, is that a thing you could do?
We're doing it as 3 now. When it was the It As Are, you had to have say 5 cuddly toys available per child in your setting, and X amount of people and X amount of blocks and things like that, whereas there's not so much emphasis in the updated version on the numbers, so we have been able to scale them back and make less in the boxes, but they've still got to be available for the session. So you can put as much work as you want into a beautiful tuck tray with the train set and, you know, scenery and everything else. They come in and throw the ambulances straight over it because they've got them there all the time. So the novelty kind of wears off on the toys. So then they're not playing with them as much. But especially with the children that aren't quite as vocal. I mean, I think I worked out the other day, we've got 19 different languages in our setting. So, you know, for those children where English isn't an additional language, they're coming in and it's just like, boom. Hello, here we are. But yeah. But it'd be good to know if the training is available again, so that we can put it out to our training coordinator.
Okay. I think
we kind of
probably have a word with the.
By chance and
okay, fair enough. Have a word with Kelsey. Yeah. Oh, good. Thank you. Have a word with Kelsey on that one, I think. Gemma, have you got another question, or is that your old hand? Okay. Anyone got anything else?
It was just to say, I agree, Kate. We're exactly the same. So we've got all our provision is out, and we've got such a high number of children with ALN that I've had to completely reduce everything because I've got so many children who are still at the mouthing stage, and I'm in a school-based nursery, so they're 3 and 4. I've had to take everything away and just start again. And I've basically, literally, now I've got my giant dinosaurs. I've had to take all my little dinosaurs away. Any of like my counting things, I've had to take them away. Any conkers and stuff like that have gone. So all my loose parts play that I've been using has all had to just go. So I'm down to the bare minimum. And I have found that the communication has been better. But now I feel like now they're just ready to tip over tables because they don't have toys to tip out. They're at that stage where they don't know what to do next. So we've had to go back to, you know, sort of bringing out the traditional garage and cars, and there's no imaginative play this year. It doesn't feel like the cohort I had last year knew exactly what to do. You know, they just played and they knew how to play. This year's cohort are
something else. Like I've not experienced anything like this before.
Gosh, that is. I've heard this. This is not the first time I've heard this, Gemma. It's just, well, gosh, I mean, I just don't know. Answers on a postcard, I think, really. But yeah, as you say, it's just reducing it so it's not they're not overstimulated, and then hopefully, well, by the end of the year when they go into reception, they'll but you know, that's not going to help you, is it?
Not right now.
You'll have done all the hard work, and they'll But this is it. But people, we nursery provision is you know, the you guys just do fabulous work in nursery. We take our hats off to you, honestly. Nobody realises how hard it is to be a nursery teacher. Or nursery practitioner, do they?
No, it sounds really really challenging from both of your perspectives, and I think it's just, you know, taking your individual children into consideration, isn't it, of the group that you've got at that time. You know, it is a great you know, tool to use, but if it's not meeting the needs of your children at this current time, then maybe, like Gemma said, just honing it back a little bit might support you a little bit better, and having that one-on-one time, you know, when we talk about that special me time, might be a really, really good, useful tool right now for you to use. Because you might draw out more conversations and interests of your children that you can then take forward, and so you're not having the tip over of the table solution, which you know, which nobody wants today.
Big point, Kelsey. And also the nice weather's coming as well now, guys.
Yes, and we can get outdoors,
get them outside.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, from my experience of teaching forest school, because I'm level 3 forest school practitioner, I know the children who are the most lively, shall we say, are different children in the forest. So yeah, maybe you know, if you've got, I mean, I don't know what your outdoor settings are like, but there is always a different emphasis when you go outside, isn't there? So okay, so I think if anyone's got anything else, I think we're probably done then, Kelsey. And just to say,
we've got a final link. Just for your feedback.
Yes, we have to.
It won't take you more than 3 minutes, so I know we won't go over time. So I've got it there, Sue. I've got it earlier. Lovely. So I'll post it. We'd be really grateful for your feedback, because we'll take on board what you say, and if there's anything we can add or change, just let us know. And as Sue said earlier, we are preparing a handbook for Early Years Wales, so hopefully you'll get that soon and it can be shared out amongst everybody.
Yeah, will do. It will. And whilst you're just completing that, and it would be really lovely to hear your feedback, and that'll help us drive forward any further training then that you want. And just to say a big thank you to both Sue and Rhiannon for sharing your research and special me time project. It sounds lovely with us this evening. And also just a big thank you to everyone for joining us as well. I know you're either in the middle of the end of a busy working day, or you've just finished and jump on. So we do really appreciate your time. I know it's really challenging time at the moment. And the mini guide Sue referred to and Rhiannon just referred to as well, you will receive a copy. So everyone who's attended this afternoon, I'll make sure that you all get a copy to that when we finalise the final version.
Yeah, but it's hot off the press, Kelsey, isn't it?
Hot off the press, as they say. And this session is being recorded so that it will be available soon on Early Years Wales website for you to access and share amongst your colleagues as well. And just thank you ever so much, everyone.